Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dan Nestle Show. I'm your host, Dan Nestle. You know, one of the things that really fascinates me about the world of work and career development is how we're always looking for ways to grow and find more meaningful opportunities. We all want that dream job, right? The one that makes us excited to get out of bed in the morning. But sometimes the path to finding that perfect role is anything but clear. Well, today's guest is someone who's taken a fresh approach to this whole career thing. She's not your typical job coach or recruiter. In fact, she's carved out her own niche. I always get that one wrong. Or right. She's carved out her own niche, helping top-level executives and senior leaders find those hidden gems of job opportunities that most people never even know about. With a background spanning over 30 years in the corporate world, she created Portfolio Rocket, this amazing career curriculum that's helped a ton of people land incredible jobs at big-name companies, all while boosting their pay and personal satisfaction. And now she's sharing her insider tips and tricks through her new podcast, A Career Blast in a Half, dishing out bite-sized, actionable career advice each week. She's all about making genuine connections, tapping into the secret job market, and helping people find careers that truly light them up. I'm super excited to welcome to the show the powerhouse behind PortfolioRocket.com, Loren Greiff. Loren,
Woo-hoo!
How you doing? Good to see you.
Never better, right? I went from having a shit day to never better, just like that.
Well, are you always energized by just seeing people and talking to people? Like I am?
It's one of the things that people seem to call out all the time. And I personally have just take it for granted. I feel excited about life. What can I tell you? And that's the way I roll. And not every day I'm feeling like this, but most days I am.
The several times that we've spoken, and I've always come out of our conversations going, how does she do it? How does she stay? She's so, and if anybody out there, of course, they're not going to see this because it's not on a video, but I mean, the energy and the kind of positivity that sort of emanates, I think that's a good word. It emanates from Loren is you just need to get on a session with her or just talk to her and you'll get the idea. But I'm looking forward to this conversation because we've talked a few times. It's always kind of fun and exciting. And, as I said in the intro, it's not just about career and jobs. I mean, people think about career and jobs, but I think they're so narrow in the way that they approach these things. And look, I've had career experts on the show before, and people know I used to be a recruiter, and I have a little bit of a background in this, sort of a space that's near and dear to me. And I love what you're doing and how you're taking all the, I don't know, errors, mistakes, kind of misdirections, all of the flaws in the system that you witnessed as a recruiter, and then turning them upside down for your new-ish service and the way that you deal with and help people who need help and in your coaching practice. So, look, all of that is just to say it's great to have you on the show, and I'm just looking forward to hearing what you got to say. And did you like the intro?
I did.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So. Well, I have a confession to make, right? So I usually I do spend a lot of time thinking about how I'm going to frame up the conversation with every one of my episodes. And I give a lot of attention to that. I don't give a lot of attention to research, but I give a lot of attention to that particular thing. So, this time around, I was going through the process and I said, you know what? I wonder what ChatGPT is going to say about this. So I upgraded GPT-4, and at the time of this recording, GPT-4 just came out a couple of days ago. And, I went through and kind of bullet pointed what I wanted to say. But what I did was I fed all this information about you into the machine, like your LinkedIn profile. I grabbed your LinkedIn profile. I grabbed your bio from your website, your description of Portfolio Rocket, a couple other things, and the description of your podcast. And I chucked it in there. And then I said, now check. And then after that, I added in several of my previous introductions. I just put them in text and I just put like 4 or 5 of them in there. I said, okay, now in the same style as these introductions, write me an introduction for Loren Greiff. And I tell you, it was ridiculously good, like ridiculously good. The one that I read you is not the first one that it came up with. And I did massage it a bit, but it was just like, I can't believe the world we live in now, Loren. And it's, it's something that I think will affect job seekers and what they're doing as well. So anyway, I've been talking too long. Loren, thank you for coming. And tell us about, how'd you become who you are? Like, let's find out more about Loren Greiff. We've talked about ChatGPT already, but let's find about Loren Greiff. So how are you? What are you up to? And let's go through, like, how'd you go from being a marketer and, decades in marketing and recruitment, and then figuring out what was wrong? Like, what's the story?
Yeah. So I'm definitely the person that I've been told the igniter. So I'm very much a challenger. I'm very much the person that is always seeking to find the information. I also can be the informant. And so growing up and getting into the world of marketing, of course, like always like fascinated with consumer insights. What is really going on here? And immediately after I graduated from college, I was like, you know what? I want to be in advertising. I mean, I want to do this cool thing and combine business and art and like merge them together. And of course, I told my mom that that's what I wanted to do. And she's like, oh no, that's where they like all have sex, do drugs, and like play rock and roll. And I'm like, yeah, I'm there. Yes. Like, it sounds like a great plan. And I moved to New York City, and was a complete brokester, and like ate at happy hours and like did all those cheesy things that you do when you're out of college. And my little like couch bed or whatever they call it, the fold out couch, like rested on the windowsill on the other side of the apartment. And let's just say my roommate had guests. She would have to walk over me in the middle of the night. And, it was some good times, right? It's like how we all kind of cut our teeth in becoming who we are. And my formative years were definitely in New York City. I mean, that to me was the greatest thing ever, ever, ever. And I loved every second of it, and eventually made my way to J. Walter Thompson and started running a lot of businesses there, became a VP at a really young age. And then it was like game over. My husband at the time and I had my first son, and we moved to Chicago, and that was hard. It was like I hadn't driven a car in 20 years, and here I am in this suburb, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and it just seems so boring, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. And eventually spent some time raising 2 boys, and got divorced, and then went back into the work world, and decided, you know what, I'm not going to be able to repeat. And this is an important point for people, right? Our careers it's like they don't live in some compartment, right? They run alongside you as your partner in your professional life. So it's not as if I could just go back into the advertising world. I had completely changed. My priorities had changed. My needs had changed. My situation had changed. I had changed. And so I decided, you know what, I can't go back into this agency thing and work a million hours. I need like a job that is going to like respect my family life. So I went on to the client side, and that was a great experience. And I really wasn't cut out for it. I really wasn't. I was working at Discover Card, which was like at the time run by Morgan Stanley, and they were like kind of people that would measure how long you spent in the bathroom. It was like tick, 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 tick. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I'm coming from this environment where people are eating Captain Crunch and playing the piano in their offices. And now they're like wondering where my productivity level is like every second of the day. So it was very intense.
That was an in-house marketing role
that was in-house
Discover
marketing role and their e-commerce team. Yeah, it was,
man,
it was nuts.
You know, a lot of people talk about you just triggered something, not in a negative way, but you just made me think of something. It's like, you know, people think of this kind of glorious life that advertising people, marketing people have, where, you know, you're just maybe in some agencies, yeah, it's Captain Crunch and ping pong, but in some places, it's really just a grueling slog to just slave away and just, you know, write and produce and crunch numbers and then write and produce and crunch numbers and you down and you do it again and again and again, like for 12 to 16 hours a day, and then finally get promoted at some point. In financial services, add a level of boring to that. And then it's just like, and by the way, I do apologize for anyone out there who loves FinComs and financial marketing. God bless you all. But for me, no, thank you.
I'm on the Nestle side. Yeah. It was just not in my blood, which again is a really important point. Like I knew that going in. It was like a square peg in a round hole. What was I doing there? I signed up for that. I elected that. And so many of us just go for that. Got to fill the whole situation. And this is not to say that there aren't merits to taking a job and a dignified life of paying your bills. I'm not suggesting that, but to go about it with such blindness. I mean, anybody that knows me would probably be like, what were you thinking? Right? Like look at yourself. I mean, like,
it takes a toll.
Right. And so, you know, I mean, I was full of so much anxiety that I literally, when I would be driving to work in the morning, I'd like pull over and vomit out the side of the car. And people still do that kind of stuff now. They're burnt out. So, I mean, I completely cop to the fact that I have been that person 100 times. And so eventually I was able to leave. And it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty for me either. I was in the middle of a divorce and a bunch of other personal things, but I was recruited to recruit. And that was a shock for me. I had a friend that said, you know, I think you'd be really good at this. And I was like, okay, like, why? Tell me. And I had that interview, and for whatever reasons, it clicked. Like I knew I could talk to the creatives, and I knew I would be able to source those people and be able to essentially read through the jargon of the job description and be able to see what they really wanted was X, Y, and Z. But they couldn't say that because, first of all, it's a placeholder for much bigger criteria. And second of all, it had to be in that corporate speak. And I got it. And it was wonderful. And I loved my days of recruiting.
You know, it's interesting because there's some similarities with my own path, you know, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, but just to kind of retread some ground here, you were vomiting out of cars. I mean, clearly you knew, and you knew that you were that it wasn't right for you, you know, and I guess maybe like I'm going to project a little bit because in my situation, I was like that I had moved to Australia from Japan, you know, 13, 14 years ago, maybe. And, it seemed like the most amazing thing to do. Who doesn't want to live in Australia by the beach? For crying out loud. Yeah. It's gorgeous. It's paradise. It's this and that. And the people are nice and everything. Everybody's happy. And, I left Japan and went there, with a company. Within like a week, I knew it was wrong. I knew it. Like I knew that the place was great, but I knew that the work was wrong. There was something off. I couldn't figure it out. A lot of what was off was me, but there was definitely something off. And I did my best to try to live the life and live the lie, I suppose, where I'd be going to this place every day and I'd come back and I wasn't puking out of cars. I did take a ferry to work every day, which was great. But I on the way back from work, I would climb up I'd have to go up this really big hill to get to where I lived. And I remember I started to get these serious sweating and kind of like feeling lightheaded and generally nauseated and just this within 5 minutes of leaving the boat. And I had a 10-minute walk up this hill. And I remember getting to my apartment at times, sitting down with my wife and just saying, I'm not right in the head. There's something wrong. Right. And I wish I had that insight to say, or the bravery maybe at the time to say, this job isn't for me. I got to pack it up and go. But you sacrifice so much to go someplace. So in your case, you'd taken this job, you left or you changed from, the home life or the parent role. And you never leave the parent role, but you've changed from full-time parenting into a career, and you're at a pretty high level role within a financial institution. You think you made it, think it's all great, and you're puking out of cars. So when the recruitment job came along, was it like a lifeline or did you really go take your time and think it through and say, okay, what? I think this is the right thing.
Through it all. And the truth is, I did not think it through, nor did I have to think it through. I knew I had a level of certainty and an alignment switch went on. I was thinking to myself, oh, this is so weird. I can't believe I never considered this. This seems so natural. Why was I wasting all my time over here when this just seems like it's so intuitive? And I did very little research. I didn't go crazy or anything, but I did talk to a couple of people that had switched from other industries into recruiting, which is also a very normal thing. There's not a lot of people that grow up and say, hey, I want to be a career recruiter. So most people are transplants from another industry. So that was helpful. And I did get that intel, but I didn't go bananas. I just knew that it was going to be right. And it was for a very long time. And I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the entire life cycle of meeting people, talking to people, interviewing people, working with clients, understanding what their vision was for their teams. And really, it got to work with some of the greatest companies that I know of, even still today. And then it hit me. It really did. Maybe there is, I often think that there is a moment in time or a CTJ, like come to Jesus moment, that a lot of people seem to have when they start and scratch their head and say, wait a second, how did I get here? This does not make sense anymore. There's something that is either broken or out of sync with the way that I think, feel, act, believe, want to behave, spend my time, etc. And that happened for me. And it happened for me at my last corporate executive search firm at Korn Ferry. And I realized that not only was I out of integrity, that I did not feel morally or ethically at peace with the industry, not the company, the way that this whole system works, which is we'll do a cattle call. We'll bring in a bunch of people. We will make sure that we send our best people on a candidate slate to our client. And we'll go through this process, oftentimes very long and exhausting on both ends. And eventually we will pick a candidate, and the people that don't get that position, the question was, now what happens to them?
Mm-hmm.
What happens to the overflow of the candidates who do not get that job? And what they would tell me, and what I was saying for years, is we will put you back in our system. Which is fine if you're the recruiter, but it's not fine if you're the person, because that means nothing to you. And that was the piece that would keep me up at night. How many times I didn't have another solution for them. And worse was that I did not want to breed a dependency on me. Why am I the person that's supposed to save your career? That's way too much.
It's so I've been there a little bit. So I'm hearing what you're saying, and to me, I was like, I wasn't in a firm at the grandiose heights of Korn Ferry, but because I did when I was in recruitment, it was earlier in my career, and it was contingency recruitment. So it's like real estate sales. You see a job opening from a that's published out there by a client. You wrestle up as many potential candidates as you possibly can that fit the role. You go over to the client, you say, I got some people for you. How much are you going to pay me for them? It's not quite that simple. Usually you have an agreement with the client ahead of time that you're going to get a certain percentage and so on, right? But it's not unlike real estate. You get the listing and then you find the buyers, or you get the listing and somebody else gets the buyers for you, whatever, you split it up. It's the same thing, which is wonderful when you get somebody a job. And it's wonderful when who wouldn't have had the job to begin with, and it's wonderful when you have a client who loves what you've done. And you've literally made something that's maybe more important than a marriage for somebody, because now you're putting food on their table and you're helping a company to grow. There's so much upside, but the downside is tremendous. And I felt the same way. Like, I didn't put my finger on it for a long time, but yeah, what happens to those people that just stay in your database and you tell them, don't worry, you're in the database. Something comes up. You weren't a match for this one, but when something comes up, matches you, I got your number. But the fact is that, it's like in many cases, at least at some firms and some recruiters I've spoken to. And for those of you out there who are working with recruiters, don't assume that your recruiter's like this, but this is the way it is sometimes. It's like a political candidate. They run a race, they lose. They got a stink on them. You don't want to keep running a loser. And when you have a candidate that just can't get a job through your system, you introduce the person to a couple clients. They can't get a job. They can't make it through their interview process. That recruiter is not going to be very incentivized to work with that person again. And it's a shame. It's a very sad fact of the system.
That's the part, like I said, that kept me up at night, but made me really profoundly sad, because it's not for a lack of talent. It's not that there's anything, dysfunctional or wrong with the level of candidates that I was working with. It's that they don't know what they don't know. And they don't understand, because there is a real way of going about this crazy thing called your job search or transition, or even behaving in your career, that nobody teaches you. You have to learn, like maybe how people learn how to do other life skills. You have to learn the hard way. And I thought that was ridiculous.
It's just like, and here's another great real estate analogy, right? It's just like buying a house. You go out there, you trust that your agent has your best interest at heart. And luckily in real estate, at least, people are licensed and they have they're supposed to have a fiduciary, responsibility to do this and that. And there's a recourse if you get screwed over. But still, you trust everything to somebody, and you simply don't know what's going on behind the curtain. And, the first time you buy a house, maybe you're a financial whiz, or maybe you've done your research and you're one of the lucky ones. But most people, you go through the process, you're like, what just happened? Why am I spending all this money? What's all these things to sign? Forget it. Okay, I'll sign it all. I've got the house. That's all that's important. But that's not what's important. There's nothing like that for a job. Like, you go through the process to get a role, whether you're working with a recruiter or not. You go through this interview process, you get the job. You're like, I passed this test. I got the job. Great. Well, at some point again in the future, maybe you'll need another job. The only reference you have is, okay, I got to go through another interview process and play the game again. And it's very reactive. It's not really strategic necessarily. And, you don't have the skills. You haven't been working on those skills between jobs. And there are skills that are involved. So look, a couple of episodes ago, like as of my current timing, but like a while ago, spoke to a great thinker and writer named Mark Hirschberg, who runs the career development center at MIT. And he wrote a book about basically building up your career skill set, right? Like, his idea was that a job, like your career, should also be like what's the word I'm looking for? Career management should be a skill set. It should be a scientific approach. It should be something you're taught, just like any other subject. Math, English, writing, reading, career. That's the way it should.
I don't know when the last time you used the quadratic equation was, but I mean, it was definitely a lot further back in my lifetime than networking.
Yeah. So he set it up like and what I liked about, what I like about Portfolio Rocket, and what it reminded me of is it's a curriculum, right? It's a way for people to understand that you need to approach your career very differently than you have been. So you're having a values misalignment, right? You had very clear that,
and I quit.
The industry had moved on, yeah.
And I was like, I'm out. I'm out. I don't have one more step. I don't have one more breath. I'm out. And while it was very freeing, it was also very terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm not a quitter. I don't like, just make impulsive decisions like that. But in that moment of clarity, what I realized, and which I hope for anyone who is listening to this podcast, is that they get that gift of desperation, and that they start to come to a place where they understand they're not going to save you, and they're not going to change. They are who they are. They're doing what they're doing. And if you don't like it, go ahead and leave.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to complain about it anymore. And I also knew that whatever the consequences was of my decision, I was going to have to live with it. And I'm glad I did. I have no regrets. I mean, it was, like I said, it was terrifying.
So when you made that decision, and so many of us have been there, and it's freeing, you're right. And I like what you said, the gift of desperation, because it can be a real gift, but there's that stage before desperation, which, like, when you're actually like, I'm done, and then there's the, oh, what have I done? Right. The regret, I suppose. And then the desperation sets in for a lot of people, unless you're some, you're so totally have total utter moral clarity.
It's worse, where you're like, you can't pull the trigger, and you're driving yourself crazy, and you're just can't figure out, like, neither option looks good. Right?
It's a terrible place to be. Right. And in your case, so you left, and you're just like, you said that you had that gift of desperation. How long did it take you before you decided, or before you decided what to do? Maybe a better way to think about that is, how did you go about figuring out that what you wanted to do was fix the system in your own way?
So my husband and I were on our way on vacation, and let's just say I was not a great travel partner. And I ended up bringing a bunch of books and a few journals, and I just started brain dumping. I can't, it was like I just spewed out all this stuff, and a lot of it was anger for not to the industry, for myself, for what I had agreed to. I felt a level of betrayal within myself, and I started mapping this out, thinking to myself, you know what? All those, I kept being haunted by those people that were not getting the job, and I had no recourse. What was I going to do? Like, I can't go out and teach you anything or help you for the next round. And so eventually what started happening for me is I realized that I had in my brain trust some level of clarity and understanding about how candidates can win in this process, how people can actually do something, which is even more important now, and I'll explain why in a minute, to not just learn about some of the mechanics of the job search, but be able to learn it like a lifelong skill set. So you have a repeatable and consistent way of going about this, so that you don't have to start from scratch, start frantically scanning job boards and picking up the phone and calling 7 million recruiters when this happens again. Because it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
And that's the part that is even more dialed up for me now. As we are seeing, the C-suite is churning and burning at the fastest rate it ever has been. 70% from a Deloitte study, 70% of C-suiters this was in late 2022, said that they would be leaving their posts. 40 months is the average tenure for a CMO right now. 4 years. 40 months. So anytime these changes are happening, the trickle down impact is so ungrounding. I'm sure that's not a word.
It
Groundlessness.
Is now.
And that can cause a lot of spiraling. And if you don't have the ability to generate your own level of resiliency around this, you're going to be doing a lot of face plants.
Yeah. And now you're right. Now is a crazy time. At the time of this recording anyway, Meta has just cut another 10,000 people on top of the 10,000 people they had already cut. By the time this is released, it could be another 10 or 20,000. It's just going to be there's an ongoing bloodbath happening right now.
Exactly.
And now I referenced ChatGPT earlier, but it's just a sign of the technology changes that are so rapid and so disruptive. There are going to be career implications across the boards at all levels for all different kinds of people. I don't want to scare anyone, but you know what? Robots might take your job. So now is a great time to be thinking, all right, what is the skill set that I need to manage my career so that A, I can get ahead of the robots, or B, find something that is robot proof for now, or figure out how to work with them, maybe, and enjoy it. And maybe that's a whole new job, right? There's a lot of paths to take, but it's right now the disruption is the word, right? And people are losing jobs. Executives are leaving jobs. Executives are being forced out of jobs. It's going to continue, I think, for a while. So you're totally right. I mean, for a lot of people who are caught unawares or who are stuck in the modality that, if something happens, I'll just brush up my resume and shop around again because I'm going to market myself like the product that I am and somebody's bound to buy me. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. And
I call that landline thing.
Yeah, that landline thing, it's just wrong.
Landline thinking.
A landline thinking.
Yeah.
That's a great way to think about it. So what do you think about all that? So tell me about landline thinking. How does somebody get out of this? And what's
landline thinking is thinking like a landline. Like, when was the last time you used a landline, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it works. A landline will work. It just doesn't fit the way that we use communication in today's world. It's not that it's broken. It's just nobody uses it anymore.
Yeah.
And the reason why nobody uses it anymore is because it's not mobile and it doesn't do all the things that it needs to do to live in this world. And your resume is very much akin to that. Your resume will warrant a maximum of 6 seconds. It is a tool within the scope of your marketing, portfolio. It is one of millions and millions of different facets of how you perform. Or it's a piece of collateral. But back in the day when we were using landlines, that was the holy grail. Oh, update my CV, and where's your CV, and all that. A lot of deals and a lot of hires are made with almost no resumes whatsoever. I know you, you know me, I like you, you're amazing, you should talk to this person. Oh my goodness, you what? Oh, you launched that? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Will you come talk to this person? Oh yeah, for sure. Great. Let's meet up on a Saturday and have coffee and see how this thing goes down. I think you guys would really like each other.
It sounds so unscientific. It's so human, right? And yet we subject ourselves to like applicant tracking systems with our keyword loaded resumes and what format's going to work best to catch the attention in those 6-7 seconds somebody has. And like it's such a mind-numbing, soul-draining exercise just to even apply for a role, right? So that's the situation. At least you just started talking about how things have changed and getting out of that landline mentality. Can you start to just tell us a little bit more about the process that people should start to follow now, and what is, what's the right way to think about things? Maybe start all the way at the mindset part of it and move forward. What's your process?
Make this so crystal clear for you, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna dispel right here the number one thing that I'm gonna ask anybody who's listening to start entertaining. The first thing is, please stop asking yourself, what do I want to do next? I don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't know what I'm going to do next. What about my job? I don't know what I'm going to do next. And please replace that with, what problems do I love to solve? Because if you love to solve that problem, I love to generate revenue. I love to increase efficiency. I love to drive brand awareness. You are going to find so much more fun in the process, and you're going to eliminate a lot of the noise while you're at it. Because ultimately, if you tell yourself that you're a great problem solver, perfect. Because everyone says that. Every person I've ever met, I'm a great problem solver. Okay, great. What problem do you solve? And that's me at 3:00 in the morning knocking on your door. What is the problem that you are there to solve? If you can answer that question, you are like 3/4 of the way there. Because knowing how to solve that problem and then aligning it to the company that needs you to solve that problem is like that's awesome.
That's where the magic happens, right?
Yeah.
So
So
start there.
that's the first piece, is stop saying, what am I going to do next? And start uncovering the problems that you want to solve, that you want to continue solving. Not every problem that you solve. Get rid of the ones you don't want to solve anymore. That's what a transition is. That's the time that you get rid of the crap you don't want to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is, why are you even doing it in the first place? Mm-hmm. Why do you care? Why is that the thing that lights you up? Go back to your why and use this very, very, very simple formula. This framework is kind of like, it will work in good times and bad times and no times. So it is, to fill in that contribution in order to whatever that impact is of the contribution. Contribution and impact. So my contribution is to replace the root canal of the job search. That's my contribution. Mm-hmm. I'm here to replace that root canal of the job search process. The contribution for that is so that your career becomes rewarding, challenging, and playful. That's what I want for every single person that I work with or talk with.
Mm-hmm. So you've got,
and just so you know, that is not that easy. Mm-hmm. Just so it's like I say it now, but that is not that easy. It's taken me a long time, and it'll go through iterations. And be gentle on yourself. That's okay.
And that's what occurred to me as you were talking about it. Like, I've spoken to quite a few people right here on the show, even, but even, in real life, and this is real life, but in life and the show, everywhere, times when people are not listening to me and times when people are listening to me, I suppose, is, this whole idea of purpose and values and what gets you going, finding your why, and, what's at the heart of why and all that. It is such, as much as I talk about it or hear about it, I got to tell you, it's never been easy for me to figure out. And I don't know if I have. Every time I sit down to say, okay, I'm going to go through an exercise and I'm going to get to it and get to my purpose. Like there are formulas you can follow and exercises you can do to
7 levels deep. Have you ever done that one?
I haven't done 7 levels deep. I'm writing that down, and that's another one, right?
That's good.
But point is, for me, it's a real struggle, and I'm not even looking for something new to do right now. But like it's a struggle. Maybe because I want to do so many things, so I don't know all the time, what should matter the most or whatever. So I have to cut out the noise and sit down and focus and figure out, what it's about. And I've done it a few times, and sometimes it comes out differently. I'm not in the same place that I was then, and what's most important isn't most important anymore. So I'm due, though, to tell you, to be honest, I'm due to sit down and have this exercise again. I think, how often do you think people should do that, Loren? Like every couple of years,
Yeah, I mean, that's a really awesome question. I like to scan. I don't read it every single time. I go back about every 6 months and check in on my why. I kind of do are you still there? Is that still the thing that is waking you, giving you that pep in your step when you wake up in the morning to really get at the replacement of the root canal? For now, absolutely. 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 Because the pain is people are screaming.
It's real. Oh, now, especially a lot of people need that dentist. I mean, it's like that career dentist. I don't know if you want to go by that. I don't know if you want that moniker, but for sure it is a painful time, I think, now. And I think a lot of us people don't know what their purpose is, or maybe they can't figure it out because, let's face it, to a lot of us, the world feels like it's falling apart. So how it's very difficult to focus in and say, all right, with all this stuff happening out there, what I really want to do is help a company grow revenue. Like it's difficult conversation to have with yourself.
You need a thinking partner for this. I mean, it is virtually impossible to do this by yourself. I wish I could tell you, and that is not a plug to say, oh, and come work with me. Okay.
Yeah.
There are exercises and things that you can do on your own. That was not the purpose here. What I'm saying is that even sparring with a friend or another colleague or something, this is not something that you should, do at home alone. And the reason for that too is because you want them to troubleshoot it and force you to come up with something that is not generic. Because everyone will say, and I've led, over 100, hundreds of women in these groups, and I look at them and I'm like, that is not ownable. That is not something that, everyone says, I want to build a great culture.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to say, I want to build a bad culture. Okay. Like I get that. And I'm not saying that you have to be a unicorn, but at the same time, it has to be something that really is inspiring to you and completely puts that fire under your butt so that you want to go back and do it, especially in times when you have crappy days.
Yeah. Is there a difference between that and finding your niche or niche?
I think that niche is probably a little roomier in terms of inclusivity. Like my niche would be part of my target audience, right? I work with C-suiters and executives, and part of the niche is that they're at that junction in their life where they have been there, done that. They've already done that, and they're like, if I'm going to go back into corporate, I got to love what I do. I just can't do it anymore. I just can't play that game anymore. So I'm really ready to sign up and to do this for the most part. And because of what you said earlier, there aren't a lot of people that have actually been dedicated to career management.
Yeah.
So they're like, if I'm going to take that big swing, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out with a bang. I'm going to do this right. I'm going to finally do this like the way that will reward the future self of my career. I want to do this. I want to make it done. I want to give it my all. And so I appreciate that because I would want to do that too. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I don't want to just kind of make the donuts.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. And it's, I always, when I speak to people who have that fire in the belly, the passion, but it's the fire in the belly. It's not enough just to have fire in the belly. There has to be the fuel for that fire. And I guess that's your why. And, it makes sense to go back to it every few months. Like companies change their strategy or have to review their strategy every, whatever it is that now, what depends on the company. It's a year. There's a year plan, a 3-year plan, a 10-year plan. I'm in a Japanese company. They go mid, short, mid, long. And there's a whole school of thought that says planning is way overrated. You should just kind of every 90 days, just take a whole new approach to where you're at. And I think that's the world we live in now for a lot of things. Not for everything. There's no one broad brush. For the field of communications and marketing, I think 90 days is generous. Everything is changing so fast. You do have to keep going back. Makes budgeting a nightmare, by the way. But you have to keep rethinking everything. But when it comes to your career, though, you'd said that there's the first two things you need to do. Stop asking, what do I want to do next? And instead, what problem do I want to solve? And then you talked about, finding your why, basically. Why do you care? And, if people can sort that out, then what is the process that they should follow from that point forward, to start managing the career? And I don't mean for you to give away the entire barn, but
no,
where should people go? Yeah.
It's fine. So with my program, there are four phases. And in that first phase, we're essentially nailing down the foundational pieces, right? We're setting up our criteria. We're looking at our top 10, 15 companies. right? We're saying, okay, these are the problems that I want to solve. And here's where I would love to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where I would really like to do that. Now, granted, that list is going to change, but it's a great starting point. Of course, we have to address LinkedIn and all of the pieces that help you get found there.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we really want to do is make sure that on LinkedIn, that profile is working like a landing page. So it's converting, driving activity. It's not sitting there like a poster or some kind of, static image. It is designed to elicit people to come by and network with you. And then take those networking opportunities that live online and move them offline. Go from the connection to the DMs, offline to a coffee or whatever else is happening offline. And more so than anything, I mean, I'll share this with you, and I think that this will be really amazing. If you're really, really ready to do this, I'm going to give you the coffee strategy. I have a coffee strategy. And if you like coffee, this is a perfect thing for you. It's 1 hour a day, 2 networking calls, 5 days a week. That's 10 calls a week. That's 40 at the end of the month. Each person represents a minimum of 150 social media connections. Come with your 3 in advance. Come prepared so that you have your 3 referrals ready for that person based off of your research. You don't have to go too deep, but you probably have some idea of somebody that they should talk to and ask them to do the same. So your 40 connections just multiplied to 120 because each person ideally would bring you 3. Every week you'll have a new pipeline because you'll be able to take the calls that you have that will become the future calls for the following week. So essentially you set up a pipeline of networking conversations. And this is important because 1 out of every 15 referrals lands a job.
1 out of 15? That doesn't seem like a large number.
No, that's exactly the point. That's the whole point. 1 out of 15 referrals lands a job versus 1.2% of the applicants that go through the applicant tracking system get to the next level.
It's 1.2%. It's not, that doesn't mean even 1.2% get a job. It means 1.2% get an interview.
Gets to the recruiter.
Yeah.
That gets to the onset of that application process.
I mean, you hear those odds. It's like, fool me once.
Right. But I always think this too, right? We know a lot of the things to do. How many people drink 64 ounces of water a day? That's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Pretty
but
simple.
People don't do it.
A lot of people don't do it. Oh, I'm not supposed to eat a ton of sugar. Oh, don't do it. Sugar is my vice. So, there's a lot of things that seem so simple, and we have them on the ready. And if we could only stay consistent in doing them, we probably wouldn't be pulling our hair out.
It's like, it's like anything. You're right. It's like anything else. That you need to exercise a certain amount of time a week or every day. That you need to eat right. These things. We don't do what's good for us. Your career shouldn't be any different, right? That's what I'm hearing. Is your career should be treated like any other part of your approach to wellness or your approach to health. Makes sense to me.
Start networking and only when you need people, right? That's like my next thing. It's like, how do you get people to network when they're working? Oh, they're so busy until they're not so busy anymore, and they expect their network to act like a bellhop. Ding ding.
Yeah. What's a good size network you think people should have? And like we've talked about on the show here, and we've even talked about separately about connections versus networking. And, there's a different level of quality between the people you just connect with and the people that you actually sit down and talk to, and the folks who get to know you. What you're talking about here is actually sitting down with somebody and getting to know them. This is a true connection. It's not just, hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Let's connect and get access to more. They're very different things, and I get that. What's like I don't know, is there a critical mass to that? Is there a point at which you have to say, I think that's enough, or I think I'll just sit back and pay it forward?
I don't count my connections or networking efforts. I think that, and for some people, it takes a lot out of them, and it does not energize them, and they feel very much depleted. So you have to be able to, first and foremost, understand what your tolerance level is, which is why it makes it easy for some people. If you can't do an hour a day, don't even worry. This isn't like a prescription. Do what you can do and find a way to keep consistent with it. If it's 2 hours a week, great, awesome. It's 2 hours more than you were doing before, but don't just blow it off.
Yeah.
Right. That's not going to move the needle. So I think that there is no critical mass. I think it's more always about quality, because you could have one person who is really pouring themselves, into you to help you, and that person opens up a million doors. You want to be able to do it in a way that is coming from the heart, right?
Well, people can see bullshit, right? They know now more than ever, and very suspicious about any connection that comes through LinkedIn now, and, and by the way, just as an aside, the number of fake people and fake accounts coming through LinkedIn has been astounding lately. And it's just, and I know they're cracking down on it, but, people need to be very cognizant that when you do reach into somebody's inbox, you got to stand out in a way that's not that's not like a turnoff or salesy or desperate or anything. There needs to be a relevance to the request, right?
Yeah, I got this from Amy Volas. I don't know if you know Amy, but she tipped me off to this one that I use all the time. I always give her credit because it's so genius. It actually didn't come from her; it came from Jackie Hermes, but it came via Amy to me, and it's the "Show me you know me." Right?
Show me you know me.
Show me you know me. And that's shorthand for saying invest a little in who you're talking to before you go ahead and ask for anything. Read their profile, do a little Google search, go to Chat GPT 4 or 10 or whatever's going to be out by the time this is released, and learn about them, invest in them.
Yeah.
And that will literally, it will change the entire trajectory of that conversation. People love to talk about themselves. And if you get them going, you'll be their hero for life.
I have to shout out to my friend Valentina, who was a guest on my show a little while back. She is just naturally curious about people. And she practices this, exactly what you're saying, show me you know me. I was at a conference a year ago, 30 people. So not a massive conference, very small, kind of intimate group. But before we got there, she did her kind of surface research on all 30 people. And she walked up to me the first day. She said, "Oh, you're Dan. You're really into, Cobra Kai. Got that from your profile." I was like, "I don't think so. Wrong guy." But then she realized, wait a second, no. You're the one who works for the toilet company. It's like but the thing is, right? You learn about people, you put yourself out there in a genuine way. Even a mistake is okay, but she did the work. Like, it was clear that she did the work and that she just wanted to get to like make a connection with people like right away and get off on the right foot. So appreciated. And we laugh about that even all the time, but it makes perfect sense. you reach out to somebody and say, oh yeah, I noticed your profile. You're doing some interesting things. Let's chat. Like I get that all the time. What's to that? There's nothing there.
Oh my God. Totally.
Nope. Nobody's tried. So, this whole idea of networking, like Jordan Harbinger says something very similar. He has got this whole program where, he puts it in a very kind of step by step. Okay, on this day, you're going to scroll down to the bottom of your phone. Look at your phone, scroll all the way down to your recent calls, the ones that aren't recent anymore, and call those people back. Text them, get in touch with people you haven't been in touch with in 18 months.
Yeah,
great idea.
It is a great idea. Again, it starts so there. Simple.
Yeah,
right.
And anybody can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to be a little brave. I think get over yourself and put yourself out there more than anything else, right? But this seems to be the access to the hidden job market that we talked about earlier. There's, 1 in 15 referrals can result in a job. Is that the essence of the hidden job market?
I mean, there's lots of ways to go about it, but it has expanded in a lot of ways because it was a job that is unposted, which is still true.
Right.
But the hidden job market also can be a job that doesn't exist at all, right? You can create a role, which is happening more and more, and you can also augment a role. So there is an open role or there is a job description that isn't posted, and you look at this or you find out about it, you hear about it through this friend or whatever it is, and then you're like, well, you know what? The essence of this sounds really good, but what really makes sense, I have somebody doing that right now. What really makes sense, and she's a privacy officer, and she's interviewing with a very, very large public entity. It's so large. I can't even believe how large it is, but it's so big, and they want to hire an attorney. And she's like, whoa. Like, you can get this job done with an attorney, but this is like the impact of what is happening here is really much more about how you are collecting data and why you are collecting data on certain things. It may not necessarily be a good place to collect data, like the way that we don't need to give all this information. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So it's you have to really be astute and aware of what those companies are going through and what you can provide. It goes back to that same thing that I was talking about earlier. Problems you love to solve and who needs you to do that.
It's hard. It's hard work. I'm still astounded by that 1 in 15 number. I know, like I keep going back through my life and how I've gotten jobs.
It sounds like it is very easy, right? The odds are very favorable. And also, you can get a job, but is that the job that you want?
Yeah, true.
So you want to make sure that it's not just like a referral, it's the person, it's the right referral. It's like everything else.
It's amazing. I love when I discover new things on my show, and then it's going to make me think about this for a while. And I also like coming back to recruitment and job search every now and then, because it feels like I'm getting back to my roots a bit, but it's also fascinating to me because it's something that we all go through. And, who knows, maybe I'll have to go through it again. Maybe I won't. You never know. It's always better to think that you will, be prepared all the time. But what I wanted to just kind of get to finally here, because as we wind down, is, you started Portfolio Rocket, and I want to give you a chance to kind of talk a little bit about like what Portfolio Rocket is, and what you're looking for, and what people would expect from Portfolio Rocket. What kind of people should be using Portfolio Rocket? So tell us a little bit about that, and where you're going with that.
As I said, it is a curriculum. And it is a rinsable, repeatable methodology for anybody who is thinking, you know what, this is not my last hurrah. This is not the last job I ever am going to have or the last career move. And most of the time when I'm talking to prospects, I will ask them specifically, how many more times do you think you're going to go through this throughout your career? 2, 3, 5? And if it's more than one, you're going to need this. So that's the whole idea. And it, like I said, goes from end to end, from some of the very early pieces that we shared all the way through the networking elements and interviewing. And then this area that I call sniff testing, which is who the bleep are these people anyway, right? You know, you want to know who you're going to be spending all this time with. And all the way out through the 30, 60, 90-day plan. And really what success looks like when you are in that new job. And so there are a lot of components to it. There is a group program, there's individual program. I am starting a Thought Rocket Thursdays with leaders in the industry, which is going to be super, super cool. I've curated an amazing group of thought leaders to come in and speak to executives and have this unfiltered discussion around what's really happening, both on the hiring and on the candidate level. And what else do I have? Oh, and my podcast, which just launched.
You're getting ahead of me. Yes, the next, and a career blast and a half, and we should say it's in a half because 30 minutes. So talk about that. It's new. It's exciting. It's a blast.
Exciting. It's like I had a virtual baby. It was a really fun and exhausting process. So don't try this alone. Another thing that you should probably get some counsel around. And it's all designed to meet executives who are ready to cut past outdated career advice to fuel those outcomes now. And why I'm talking about this is because there are so many lies, so many faulty beliefs, landline thinking, as we talked about too. But I think the most important thing that you need to know about Career Blast and a Half as a product and as something that you would want to listen to is that it is fun. I'm here to, like I said, remove the root canal. So this isn't a snore fest. And the conversation is very lively and spicy. We do swear, which
fine.
keeps people awake. But we also want to get at a lot of those faulty beliefs around what we used to think and make sure that they are replaced with things that are working now. And what's working now, as I say this on whatever date we are taping this, and what's working in another couple of weeks are going to be completely different. So part of the challenge with this is keeping pace. And as we talked about before, it's happening fast and furiously. So I got a lot of good work ahead of me, and a lot of fun sleepless nights, and doing research and talking to the best of the best.
One of the things in anybody's career toolkit, and that's what Mark Hertzberg called it, the career toolkit. But in your career curriculum or in your career skill set, I think one of those things that you have to develop is a comfort with change and an ability to embrace change and to see change. It's harder to see it. It's harder to be a futurist, but I think you have to be somewhat of a futurist with your own career. And, that's something that there are methodologies you can learn how to kind of look out there for the weak signals, see what's happening. I am not a career counselor, so, I'm certainly not a career coach. Listen to Loren about that stuff, but I will tell you just from personal experience, it helps to read a whole hell of a lot all the time to know what's going on out there. And, you find opportunities to act on those things and to explore. And, whether you're looking for a job or you're in a role or you're an entrepreneur or whatever, you want to find those places where you could expand into, I guess. And, that's the way I've been living my life now, at least the last 10 years is, 8 or 10 years is just finding exactly like those things. I have to be careful about bright, shiny object syndrome, which is like, ooh, that's a cool thing. I want to do that now, but at least I can entertain myself with new stuff that's coming out, see if I like it, see if it's something I want to do, and figure out how I can bring it into my job, and who knows, if I like it too much and it's not relevant to my job, I may end up thinking, well, that's kind of what I want to do, not this anymore. So it's a risk. It's a risk I play with every day. But I was just thinking about, this whole idea of, the career blast in half and change and understanding things are different all the time, and they're going to be different moving forward, which brings me to my very last question for you, Loren, which is, what keeps you up at night when you think about this whole world of career change, of the lies that people live with until they figure it all out, or even something beyond that. But what is it that's keeping you up at night these days?
I think that what keeps me up at night is the unbelievable roadblocks that come in so many different mental formats. The roadblock of fear, the roadblock of imposter syndrome, the roadblock of whatever is in the way of getting from where you are now to the best outcome that you can have. And I see it all the time. It doesn't have anything to do with title. It doesn't have to do anything with whatever your compensation level is. Everybody has it in one form or another. And, I strive so much with my clients to keep them together, to use each other and use that force as a force multiplier so that they are all winning together. Because this is not something you should do in isolation, because the isolation will just breed more isolation. And everybody's got something. This person comes to me and says, well, I'm an introvert and I can't network. Not true. This person says, well, this happened. Everybody's got something. Nobody is a special snowflake here. And so the whole idea is to be transparent with it so that you can actually celebrate those kind of crazy pieces and the crazy making together so that you have some momentum to walk through it.
That's great advice. And, it seems like, that the main thrust there is having a flexible learning mindset. And it's funny, it always goes back to this mindset thing. You have a belief system. You're afraid of something. You have imposter syndrome, all the things you mentioned. I'm an introvert, so I can't network. Perfect example. Of course you can. You just have to change the way you think about things. And I say it's never a just. It's always a process, but everybody can do it. And I'm glad that you brought that up at the end, because look, anybody who really wants to figure out, how you want to approach your career and having some issues or thoughts or questions about it, clearly talk to Loren. She knows what she's talking about. Portfolio Rock. It's a very cool. It's a very cool solution to this problem for people with the right mindset. It is really different than. It's not a career site. It's not a job search tool place. It is a career management, a way to own your career management. It's your MBA in career management, as you had said at some point in an early conversation.
People that know each other and are going to be helping each other from now until whenever they want to. And I see it happen all the time. They get together and they send me pictures when they're like going to have brunch or doing this or go for a run with each other. And I'm like, love it.
Yeah. It's wonderful that you have a cohort. That's something special, and it's going to change your life. So, reach out to Loren. Her name's going to be spelled properly in the episode title, but it's Loren Greiff on LinkedIn, portfoliorocket.com, Twitter. We're at Portfolio Rocket. There's any other ways to reach you, Loren, or are those the main ones?
Those are the best ones. Check me out on Career Blast and a Half on Spotify.
On Career Blast and a Half, right? Wherever you listen to podcasts, Career Blast in a Half. Man, I can't wait to listen to that.
Episodes every Wednesday, so very excited.
You're gonna every week, every Wednesday. So be on the lookout. Wednesday, Career Blast and a Half.
So it's the half day mark of the week.
Awesome. Well, that sounds terrific. Loren, thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you again soon.
You sure will. Thank you, Dan.
All right, thanks for listening to the Dan Nestle Show. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. You know, people always ask me, why do I do the show? I do it for the ratings. I do it for your validation. So do me a favor. Go over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or someplace else, wherever you're listening to podcasts, and subscribe, leave a review, rate me, and share with your friends. Anything you can do to spread the word, I deeply appreciate it. Thanks again for listening to the Dan Nestle Show.